You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome to the sixth and final round here at week 2 of season 4 here at the Eternal Tournament Series. I am Truedawn, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Bairdrus.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We got yet another exciting matchup. Going to close out the 6 rounds of Swiss here with one final matchup. This should be a win and in, I do believe. 2 players on 4 and 1, so the winner is guaranteed in. The second person is going to be left up to tie breaks. We got ilyaK on TJP mid-range up against aReNGee on Xenon Killers.
Yep, and this is a deck we actually haven't seen in a while in Xenon Killers. I haven't seen it on ladder in this tournament in months, maybe. Like, it's been a long time. And it'll be interesting to see how it fares against the metagame. Obviously, Tiger has gotten this point thus far. Tiger, obviously, a very good player, someone who's traditionally in the top 5 of the Eternal Ladder. So, obviously, feeling that the Xenon Killers deck is a reasonable place to be for this tournament, playing things like Beast Claw's Amulet, Predatory Carnosaur, obviously Copper Conduit Dark Returns to do all that stuff, and Predator's Instinct. So, I'm interested to see this deck in action again. It's been a while, and I'd like to remember how it interacts with this stuff.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. As you said, Truedawn, like, we haven't seen Xenon Killers in quite a while, and this will be one of the first times we've seen it. Like you said, I mean, aReNGee definitely had a good day with it. He's going up against ilyaK, though, and, ilyaK, no slouches, I'm sure everybody at home knows. ilyaK, one of our very consistent performing tournament players, as well as generally finds himself as well in the top 5 of the ladder. And he's on this TJP mid-range deck, which has been proving quite powerful in the meta, really. And, I mean, it had a breakout about two and a half months ago almost now. And ever since then, I mean, it's just been a force to be reckoned with. And ilyaK finds himself on it today, and he's been piloting it fairly comfortably.
Yeah, and ilyaK's version is a lot more aggressive. There's things like Praxis Placer to leverage tempo, awaken students as the best 2-drop of this color combination. Surso, Sandstorm, a very aggressive build of this deck. And so we'll see if he's able to leverage all of these aggressive cards against the Xenon Killers deck. My anticipation is that this is going to devolve into a later game. I think both players have a lot of reasonable stuff to do early and blunt each other's aggression. But I guess we will see, as I haven't seen Xenon Killers in a while, as we move here into game 1.
Yeah, and we are moving straight into game 1. ilyaK, a little bit of a slow hand here. He's definitely going to need to hit his 3rd power to get his Amber Acolyte, but if he can establish that, he will be good to go. On the other side of the board, aReNGee just taking his first turn, establishing a power.
And this is certainly one of the matchups where Stand Together is going to be underwhelming. There are certainly likely to be spots that ilyaK will find themselves in where they get to leverage it, but there are no really sweepers on the side of aReNGee, and also non-trivial amount of his removal revolves around killering stuff, and that does not care about Aegis. So we'll see if ilyaK is able to leverage the Stand Together as the game progresses further, or if it's just going to sit there being a dead card.
Yeah, we will see indeed. ilyaK having hit his 3rd power drop. Looking in a good place. Got Amber Acolyte, which will help him curve out 4. And Praxis Displacer's an interesting card in this matchup for sure. I think it's going to actually prove to be quite helpful against aReNGee. Definitely when you see something like that come down, pending Doom. Easily taken care of by a Vanquish as well, though. So ilyaK definitely got a couple choices this turn, and it looks like he is going to opt just to go ahead and get some power. Not necessarily against that. I feel like you can definitely take a turn off to eat a little bit of damage just to make sure that you're curving out properly.
No, certainly. I definitely like developing your mana. You do have a lot of relatively expensive cards in your hand. You do want to have multiple spell turns. For example, next turn, ilyaK can go other Amber Acolyte, Vanquish, still make 4 parks on the board, still make 4 parks in their mana. So I do like this setup on the part of ilyaK. This Impending Doom will come in for 5 damage. That is perfectly fine. And we will see what the follow-up is on the side of aReNGee, and it is a Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah, he does have the Sandstorm Titan, and he does have the Killer coming down on it, so that's going to be a little bit unfortunate for ilyaK taking care of his Awakened student there. It'll be okay, though. We have Double Vanquish in hand for ilyaK, so he's just going to be able to take care of both those threats, push in a little bit of damage, and he should be good to go. So it's going to be on Tiger to find something to reload onto the board with. And with that Praxis Displacer hanging out in ilyaK's hand, like, he can still continue to push little bits of damage every turn and really just, scale his board out. If ilyaK can find a Xenon Obelisk, he'll be in a really good position. Crystallize also going to be a solid card in this matchup, able to lock the board down temporarily.
Oh, certainly. Although both of those cards are predicated upon ilyaK having some mana or board state, which is going to be able to develop a little bit this turn. Getting the 5/5 in place really does matter a lot. But his pressure is still relatively anemic, especially if he's unable to really deal with this 5/5, and it's going to come with yet more 5/5s.
Yeah, absolutely. We do see the 5/5 coming down off the Beast Colors and Amulet, and this is going to be quite a bit of a problem, actually, for ilyaK. Like, he's at least got a fight on the ground he can take now, but there is two 5/5s in play to deal with, so...
He actually has a way to, he can do this, try and bounce the 5/5, jam for 7, and then follow up with Crystallize, and he can just tempo him out of the game. That appears to be ilyaK's plan. We will see if Tiger has anything to disrupt it.
Yeah, we will see indeed. That Crystallize is going to be very valuable in this matchup. Tiger, unfortunately, not playing Primal, not going to have a way to counter it. Also, isn't going to have any protection since he's not playing Justice. So, I mean, at this point, you're right, actually. It really is not looking good for Tiger unless he's got some solid follow-ups here. He's really going to need some removal. Annihilate to start. He really wishes that he could find some way to take care of this False Prince. Like, taking care of the False Prince really does nullify the Crystallize, but unfortunately it doesn't really look like he's got anything here. That being said, though, I mean, with that punch there and being able to take care of the Praxis Displacer, I'm not sure Crystallize is actually going to be good enough anymore.
I mean, it's not lethal this turn, but it does set up lethal on the following turn. So it does set up ilyaK in a pretty good spot. If there's a removal spell on the False Prince, that certainly breaks things up and puts him in a bad spot. But if he's able to untap with the Sands together, he's likely to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he does have the 5/5 in play. We'll see what ilyaK can muster here. It looks like he's just going to have to play defense, in fact.
Well, no, he just has lethal, right?
Well, it's blocked out by the... oh, you're right, though. You're right. Stand together on the Overwhelm. You are correct, yeah. Doesn't even need to actually get the unit down. Yeah, unless Tiger HC has some way to respond to this, which it doesn't look like he does.
Both.
Yeah. Well, actually, in that case, he only had to kill...
the 3/3.
Yeah, he only had to kill the 3/2. So if he had another Annihilate, he would have been okay, but unfortunately, yeah, it just didn't come down for him. So looks like ilyaK will be picking up first game.
And it certainly did look like ilyaK's deck is a lot more proactive than Tiger's, which is to be expected. Tiger does have things like Ardent Instigator and Dawnwalker, but I think that on average, ilyaK is going to try and be the beatdown. We will see if both players maintain that dynamic going into sideboard, because ilyaK does have the ability to slow down his deck if he so chooses.
Yeah, we will see indeed as we do take a look at these players' sideboards. We're going to get into Tiger's sideboard first. We got some spot removal here in the form of a Suffocate and Annihilate. He's got some Devourers to make a little bit of card draw, Decay, some Death Strikes, some Steward of the Past, Umbran Reapers as well. Probably see the Steward of the Past come in. Probably Death Strikes. He definitely needs some way to have actual hard removal. Annihilate and Suffocate will probably find their ways in. I mean, really just removal all around for Tiger, I think, is what the game plan is going to be.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be on the side of blunting the aggression. He needs to get to a point where he can recur a lot of his killer creatures or make like giant copper conduits or like get advantage through like recursion and killer stuff. If he's able to do that, I think he has a good shot of winning the game. What I'm not sure of is how likely he is to do that. He's only slightly slower than ilyaK, so he should be favored in that sense, but I think that a lot of these excuse me, a lot of these threats do not line up particularly well against what ilyaK is presenting.
Yeah, not particularly. And on ilyaK's side, we see Dawnwalker, Scorpion Wasps, some scouting parties in the sideboard, Rain of Frogs, some pretty powerful cards here. We could see Rain of Frogs come in for ilyaK. I'm not sure how much he honestly needs it here. Scorpion Wasps are also kind of solid, but again, like those are more defensive cards. I'm not really sure ilyaK is looking to get very defensive here. Maybe we'll see something like Dawnwalker come in. I have a feeling those are probably pretty solid cards here.
Yeah, certainly helps foster the aggressive game plan. Yeah, outside of that, there's really not a lot I like. Protect, again, doesn't really stop killer. Scorpion Wasp is probably a little too expensive. It's I think ilyaK just has a decent main board for this deck. I would expect a very light sideboarding from him, and I think he'll be in reasonable shape as we move here into game 1. Or 2, rather.
Yeah, moving into game 2 here, and ilyaK lacking justice, but he does have a Seek Power, so he'll be able to find it. And he does have an Awakened Student on turn 2, and that's one of those cards in this matchup that is just absolutely devastating in the matchup. Like, it can be so aggressive, and if Tiger doesn't have an immediate response, that card could just absolutely scale out of control.
And there's not a lot that Tiger has to deal with it on curve. There is Suffocate, but outside of that, potentially a Predator's Instinct on this Argenport this turn, it's really hard to deal with this card usually. If he's able to have one of those things that does deal with it, however, it leaves ilyaK in a spot where he really doesn't have a lot going on.
Oh, and this is actually huge here. Tiger being able to drop the amulet on this Argenport Instigator. Now that he has the 5/5 down, I mean, it's going to force ilyaK to go ahead and drop this Vanquish, which is fine. I mean, Vanquish is a nice way to take care of that. But at the end of the day, we know that Tiger is going to have some bigger threats in the deck that Vanquish would have preferred to find. And I'm honestly a little curious as to him not going ahead and dropping the Scorpion Wasp here.
It's interesting. Certainly, it is a little bit more mana efficient. You could potentially have like Vanquish, leave up Backlash next turn. They both do similar things. You do take initial damage from the Argenport. You're more vulnerable to Annihilate. So I guess the Vanquish is the safer play, but there are certainly ways this can play out where you would rather have it later. Although, to be fair, Scorpion Wasp does potentially protect your cards from killer later in the game. And the Xenon Obelisk off the top was actually very good for ilyaK because now it makes Awakens to a 5/5 and is currently able to block both of the opposing Argenport Instigators.
Yeah, this Awakened Student has gotten absolutely massive, just like we were talking about. And with this Obelisk in play, Obelisk, very, very important card in this matchup. It's going to allow all of these threats from ilyaK to be huge and just be able to handle these smaller units like Argenport Instigator. And yeah, just kind of go toe-to-toe. Unfortunately for ilyaK, I'm not sure we're actually going to get to see that far into this game. Looking like we're coming to a close very rapidly here. Very likely ilyaK is going to take another 5 damage this turn. Both the Argenport swinging in and the trigger.
Nope, make that 6. So yeah, here comes the Argenports, and it's going to be rough now that it deals that much. Both of these Argenports are lethal, and ilyaK can't just play the Sandstorm Titan to stabilize. So he needs to play multiple spells this turn, and currently cannot.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way for him out of this situation.
Oh, well, that on board, or never mind, because the other Argenport still lives, so it doesn't march hunt blocking, doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately for him, he's not going to be able to chump block here because it's just going to trade off and it's going to kill him. And, he's still making the blocks regardless. But, yeah, unfortunately for ilyaK, not going to be enough there. So we will see the players split the games at 1 apiece going into our deciding game 3.
Yep, and that was certainly a game where Tiger drew the appropriate interaction to turn the tide on ilyaK, and also drawing like all 3 Argenport Instigators, one of the most aggressive cards in his deck, actually be able to switch the roles, put ilyaK on the back foot, and just close out the game. So I do think both decks have the potential to take the beatdown role. It likely is play draw dependent to some extent, but if Tiger is able to have an aggressive draw that ilyaK is unprepared to deal with, or vice versa, I think it's going to be really hard for the player on the back foot to come back based upon the texture of both players' decks.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I mean, play draw is super important here, and ilyaK having the play is just as important as Tiger having the play. So ilyaK going to be slightly favored at the beginning here. Being able to get this Awakened student to a 3-3 before Tiger really has any time to respond is very important for ilyaK's strategy. And Tiger, on the other hand, if he had been on the play, we could have seen a similar play the last turn where you get that Amulet down. And Amulet just popping out that 5-5 is so very hard for ilyaK to deal with immediately. Like, he's either got to have a Wasp or a Vanquish, or that thing is just going to sit there and be quite annoying.
No, but there is the Suffocate to deal with the Awakened student. So now ilyaK just doesn't have a lot of productivity. He did draw the Sinister Fight at the top, but he doesn't have power for that. So if he stumbles a bit here and falls in the back foot, again, it's hard for these decks to really come back from behind. They have tools for it, and this Desert Marshal is a good answer to the Dawnwalker. But you really don't want to fall too far behind in this matchup, and the power drop will certainly help ilyaK not do that.
Yeah, absolutely. ilyaK now able to establish this Sandstorm Titan, and now it's going to be up to Tiger to see what kind of removal he has. The good news for Tiger is that since he is playing Shadow, he does have removal in the form of Annihilate and Death Strike, both of which will handle Sandstorm Titan very effectively. Annihilate will just absolutely maul the Sandstorm Titan, and really, as we've said, I mean, ilyaK's hand looking pretty light on interaction, and yeah, there is the Annihilate, so not a lot going on here for ilyaK.
And there certainly was a contention to like maybe slow roll the Sandstorm Titan because you do have the Protect, and now you have no threat, so the Protect is really bad. And even though you're like getting on the back foot a bit, you're not being proactive, and you don't want to get too far behind this matchup. You really don't want to have dead cards either, so maybe ilyaK a little bit too aggressive, but it's a close decision certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And now with the Argenport Instigator coming down, this provides some extra damage from Tiger, although Tiger is choked up on power, and now ilyaK finds a real threat.
Although one that does not interact favorably with Protect, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately does not interact favorably with Protect, but fortunately for him, Tiger really isn't going to have a lot of removal for here. It's going to be honestly pretty hard for him to find anything to match with it. We are going to see this False Prince go ahead and pushing in. It's going to be dealing some damage right here. Quite a heavy hitter. And the Praxis Displacer not only bounces the Argenport Instigator, but also lines up quite well with the board.
Yep, we'll get to trade here with the Copper Conduit, which I think that you probably still do. The 5/5 comes in, and that's unfortunate, but getting the Copper Conduit out of play doesn't matter. The Copper Conduit will likely come back via a Dark Return later. At least that is the plan Tiger's trying to employ. And the Xenon Obelisk off the top makes these attacks a lot better for ilyaK.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Xenon Obelisk makes all of these tiny units very, very strong, and units that can really like contend with a lot of what Tiger is going to play earlier on. I mean, he does have a lot of these big 5/5s and 5/6s and Sandstorm Titan and Pending Doom, things like that, but
yeah, he's certainly going to need spell. Like, obviously, no, Tiger's hand is full of business because he has been playing power. So if he is able to draw that power and start playing a lot of his spells, ilyaK doesn't have a lot going on. He does have a decent amount of interaction, but the Desert Marshal may or may not be useful. It's kind of hard to leverage the Scorpion Wasp. Same with the Protect. So yeah, the Dark Return here on the Copper Conduit is going to make it large enough to contest the False Prince.
yeah, we do see.
Starting to parity.
Yeah, we actually are starting to get to parity, as you just said. I mean, this Copper Conduit is just as big as the False Prince, and he'll be able to check it with the Scorpion Wasp, but unfortunately the problem is it's very unlikely to ever swing in with the current board state. So we're kind of just going to be at this standstill until somebody can really crack this open.
And Tiger's just drew his fourth power. We know his hand is all business, so it's just starting to deploy the things that were stuck in his hand via because he was stuck on power. So it's possible that ilyaK gets overrun, although ilyaK's draw steps have been reasonably kind to him. He's drawn some business off the top.
Yeah, and he was able to vanquish off the Copper Conduit, which does allow him to swing with the False Prince, although this will be probably an easy double block for Tiger. Like, he's only losing a 5-5 for it, so it's not super profitable for ilyaK, but it does get the 5-5 off the table, and that's important. That allows him to swing with a lot of these smaller units.
Yeah, the 3/2s do threat a trade or attack through the Argent Port Instigator. Scorpion Wasp is still up. Tiger's so low, it's possible that he wants to end of turn and start ticking for 2 with the Scorpion Wasp. Unclear how Sailor's influences that. ilyaK decides to pass and draws another Vanquish, making things a little bit easier, and we'll likely see him ship in for 6.
Yeah, these Vanquishes are quite timely. The Argent Port Instigator rolling off 1 more damage. If the Argent Port Instigator gets traded off here, it's going to set Tiger to 6. And ilyaK will, as you said, be able to establish a Scorpion Wasp if he chooses to and start picking down with that clock in the air. And, you know, that's definitely a plan I'm liking at this point. Tiger really is not going to have a lot of interaction with it. I mean, it's possible he has some sort of like Annihilate, but at the end of the day, you're just trading Annihilate for a Scorpion Wasp, and that's not the greatest trade just up front.
That's really interesting. We know that Tiger's hand is largely business. He's hit like running power for the past several turns, but he chooses to pass without doing anything, meaning likely has a lot of removal, and we do see him the Annihilate coming on end step while Protect is down. Scorpion Wasp going to chip in, will connect for 2 damage, and the follow-up False Prince is threatening a lot of pressure.
Yeah, this False Prince, if it goes unchecked, is just going to be absolutely destructive. But once again, Copper Conduit bringing the board back to some semblance of parity. Although the Scorpion Wasp is still picking away in the air, and ilyaK has the ability to throw down another one. So even if Tiger has a single removal for the Scorpion Wasp, it's just not going to be enough here.
He even has 2 protects to protect the Scorpion Wasp, so I don't know what Tiger can have to get out of this. There's 2 lethal threats and 2 protection spells to protect them, so...
Yeah, I'm not sure what he can get either. And Tiger, yeah, I mean, he did just pass the turn back. I mean, that's got to be a signal that this game is over. And in fact, it is. ilyaK will take this series 2-1 over Tiger HC with the TJP mid-range deck.
Yep. And ilyaK will move on to our top 8. So good performance by ilyaK once again. Always does reasonably well in our Eternal Tournament series. Continuing to do so, especially with... willing to change to whatever deck he believes is good, and doing pretty well with the Elysian deck.
Yeah, and I think that is all we have for the Swiss rounds. We are going to take a short break, folks, so do not go anywhere. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, we will be right back in just a few moments, folks. Do not go anywhere. We are going to be bringing you top 8 coverage very, very shortly.